Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about how to start seeds like a pro. So the first tip is to not be late at the party and to start early enough in your nursery. And really the trick is to be able, a pepper or a tomato, it's going to be like 60 days inside the nursery before it's transplanted outside in the garden. So you really need to start and backlog your operation so that you're starting them early enough inside. The bottom line is that you kind of need to know what's the earliest you can plant in your garden, frost-free date, and then you reverse engineer most of your crops so that you can start them inside so that you can transplant big, nice plants at that date. And so the gardening season doesn't start when it's hot and warm outside. It starts way before inside what we call a nursery. So the next thing is that you're going to be using trays to start your seedlings into and potting mix, soil mix. Starting with really, really good soil mix is really important. And so you want to find, you can make your own, and there's some nice recipes out there, but from my experience, it'll cost less to buy mix that's already made, having all the different ingredients. Usually in soil mix, there's going to be peat moss, there's going to be a little bit of compost, there's going to be soil, there's going to be perlite or vermiculite to just like add to the drainage. That's what the white thing that you see in the soil mix. And it's a blend, okay? And the blend needs to have fertility, airspace so that the roots can breed. It's a science to do great soil mix. So my advice would be to find great soil mix out there, perhaps something that has mycorrhizae in it, and definitely something that's certified organic, because you don't want to have wetting agents and just like chemicals in your soil mix. That's a huge no-no. And so soil mix, really important, find the best one out there. And then seeding trays. There's a lot of different seeding trays out there. I really like the ones that you'll be able to keep for many, many years. This is a really nice one that I really like, but we work with 128 and 72 cell trays, which is the number, the cell trays, they're all the same size, but the number of cells will vary. It could be, again, it could be 72, it could be 128, it could be 52. It's a standard in the industry, but I recommend using 72 and 128 for most of the crops that we start inside. So the next important part is that your nursery space will need to have proper light and warmth. Okay, so we're heating that space and we're bringing the light that you need, because again, it's not summer, it's early spring, or in my case, it's in the winter. Okay, so having the right lighting is important. You can buy shop lights with two kind of lights, warm white, cool white, just as long as it has the full spectrum. And then, that's pretty typical. If you're in a greenhouse, again, you might want to have the greenhouse separated so that you're heating not the whole greenhouse, but just like a first section, which is going to be your nursery. Or if in your house, it could be, putting these trays right in front of the windows. So just make sure that it has at least 10, 11 good hours of light so that your seedlings will grow. And then the warmth, again, make sure that it's at optimal growing temperatures, which is 18 degrees Celsius at night, 68 Fahrenheit for the night. And during the day, it should be between 20 and 30. So these are the specs that you need to create and follow. In a greenhouse, we'll have heaters, we'll just bring that kind of energy. In a house, most often than not, it's there. There's all sorts of ways to get there. A grow tent might be a good suggestion if you're growing in a pretty big garden or market garden. Okay, so here what we have is a heating table. So that is a germinating table. So it's a table that has heating wires built into it, and I'm going to cover it with sand, and it's going to become really warm. And then I put a probe inside my trays, and then it's going to activate the heating cable until it's at optimal range for my crops to my seeds to germinate here. Another trick is when you're putting seeds into your trays. And so, you know, there's different seeders. If you're commercial, you can use these seeders, but really the rule of thumb is that you need to make sure that the seed is as thick into your trays as the seed is big. So another way to say this is like when you have bigger seeds, you need to put them deeper. They should be as deep as the seed is big. So really small round seeds, you can just create this cavity. You know what we do is we push down on the tray like this, and then we create this cavity, and then you can just drop your seeds there and then cover it with soil. That's going to be enough. But on bigger seeds, let's say you're doing squash, cucumbers, you know, you really want to press them in so that they're further down. A nursery space, seedlings, you know, there's a tendency to overwater. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're watering just enough so that the seedlings, they never go dry. But if you water too much, then you create all sorts of circumstances where they can get some disease. And so they need to kind of be on the dry side early morning when they start the day. So depending on how sunny it is, you'll water once or twice. If it's really hot, perhaps 3 times a day, but never after 3 o'clock. When it's cloudy, noon is going to be when you water, and that's going to be that. And then you're always going to do a first pass and a second pass so that the water goes all the way down. And make sure that you don't forget, because if those little seedlings, they run out of water, if they become dry, they'll die, and you don't want that. And you want this operation to be a success, because as we said, you know, it all starts at that stage.